Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Xtreme Studios with the young 20-something Professor Pixel in here as well. And you may ask, what are two men of disparaging ages, since I'm the 80s guy and is a young 20-something, doing? We're going to be covering tonight some exercise plans, particularly an exercise of fatality, aka we're continuing our review of Columbo. This time, season 4, episode 1, with the great James West, aka Robert Conrad, aka the Wild Wild West, one of my personal favorite shows growing up as a kid. I got to tell you, Pixel, I love the fact that for Columbo that we're going through each season, putting it in once a year, and we're up to season 4 now. It's been pretty popular. People really like it. Fantastic writing of a show. The seasons aren't particularly long. I'm okay with that as long as the quality stays up. The one thing about, I have to say, Robert Conrad is he's a hot guy. No homo, as the old guys would say back in the hood. But there is something about men who are men, regardless of whatever, and they carry themselves like it. And so when I was a kid growing up watching Wild Wild West, to see him as the bad guy, oh my God, are you kidding me? Because I heard he was in one of these. And then when we watched this episode for the first time for me, I went, oh my God, and he's a fitness instructor. How perfect, because he grew up in Chicago, was a boxer. He did a show called Baba Black Sheep. I mean, was involved in search and rescue and stuff in California. I used to actually listen to his podcast some years back when he was an older gentleman before he passed away. And I got to say, this episode, if you notice, it's only, I think, if I recall correctly, the second time Columbo gets seriously pissed at the bad guy. He's phenomenal here. Man, what a great way to pick up. We have not lost anything in terms of quality. What's your initial reaction to this episode, sir?
This he does maintain quality. I've missed Columbo. You know, we were talking about Hannibal, and Hannibal's been great. It's a very different show. Very different.
It's almost a drain on you watching it because it's so deep and dark and intense, and this is not. This like charges me up.
Absolutely. I'm grinning in ear to ear right now because this is a delight. I think I watched this episode 2.5 times now because I watched it at one point last week, watched it yesterday, and then I watched the beginning and end for the review today. I even have it up in the background right now just so that way I have it for reference. It is a delight. Yes, we have Robert Conrad as our big bad today. And I'm just so glad to be back. I suppose we should just dive right in. I don't know if you're speaking.
I am speking. Take us in, sir. Let the diving in begin before the dying begins.
We're introduced to Milo Janus.
How, sir? The extremists want to know.
In a building. That's where he's in. He runs a...
What's playing in the background, sir?
Huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know what's playing in the background. I can't recall.
All right.
I was not listening. But no, he has an operation. He goes ahead. He gets a call from a man named Eugene Sheffield, I think it is, and or Stafford. That's his last name. And he wants to have a conversation with Mr. Janus about how certain things are being run. He goes over, and you can tell that Mr. Stafford, he isn't happy. And you have Robert Conrad just, with every interaction, he's like putting on the charm. As he's like, no, you gotta understand, I'm maintaining quality. So these companies that I'm choosing, I told you when you bought your franchise, Gene, you're going to have to deal with certain companies. Yes, your companies. He owns everything from the office supplies to the equipment to the franchise itself. And he's basically milking each of these people that are buying one of his franchises for all their cash.
Yeah. So when it gets started, you know, you hear what's called Muzak, Muzak. That's the elevator type music. And so that was something that you start seeing more in retail things. You know, people were going out to the malls, the middle class is growing really big. The 70s is whatever, and the 80s definitely people went. But I'm like, when I watched it, I went, wait a minute. And I went back and I listened to it again and I turned it up because I'm like, do I know this song, right? And it's the Milo Janis franchise song, the Milo Janis way, whatever it is, it is. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cute thing. And I almost missed it. So I was like, oh, I forgot how there's these little details when you're watching the show that if you don't see them visually, like if you're just listening to it or only half paying attention to it, or God forbid you suffer from second syndrome or second screen syndrome, as it's called today, you're going to miss a lot of this episode because this episode is like a lot of episodes. There's a hit and miss quality with how well they show you the murder, because we're used to that now, but how well you can derive it from the clues and watching how Columbo figures out. That's the gimmick, right? I think this is probably, in my opinion, one of the earliest we see Columbo figuring things out, like almost before he even meets him. And that made it kind of interesting to me because the type of charm Robert Conrad has, that kind of, he's kind of like the cool guy that everybody likes. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's really fit. He was a boxer, like an amateur guy. He did almost 80, 90, 100% of his stunts on the Wild Wild West. And that show was batshit crazy. And to me, it's the gold standards of shows in the United States for stunt play. I don't care what anybody else says about any other show. It is that show. And we do things differently in the States than, say, in Hong Kong or other areas with how we treat horses and stuntmen and all that. Robert Conrad always had my utmost respect because he always wanted to do himself. And he's a fit dude here. He really is. And we've seen some of the fitness craze starting to take off in the 70s, literally, in some Columbo episodes. This is the second one, right? Before they were at a fat camp, I think it's called, right?
Yes.
So it's here because the guy that's basically one of the guys who owns a franchise, he's basically saying, hey, this is what's bothering me. There's a lot of fraud basically here. Now, the problem, if you really get into it, like we have some weak sauce occasion with the Columbo writing, is being a franchise owner means you pay a fee to the franchise company, and they tell you you have to pay X amount of money a month. You're only going to sell stuff at these things, and there's very little differences to it, so you do not ruin the reputation of the franchise. That's why today, someone your age, and I always like to poke fun at you with it here in a gentlemanly sort of way, private equity is buying out all the companies like Panera and all these other major chains. And what they do is they immediately change an ingredient to, stock price shoots up, they get their kickbacks, but then everybody that's been spending money to it, they leave. And then, of course, they've got their bonus and the company goes bankrupt. That's the nature of the business. Private equity is huge right now. It's overtaking all these small chains and companies. And for Milo Janis, he's basically like not yelling with the guy or arguing. He's listening. But this is the Robert Conrad thing. He can look you straight in the eyes and lie straight to your face. And he goes, hey, all the money's going to advertising and promotion. Every cent that I make is reinvested. And he'll tell it to you in such a stern, direct way that you should believe him because he knows about it. You're like, damn it, he's so good. It's not a I'm going to beat you up kind of arrogance thing. But this is just great. It shows how tough he is. And the guy that he's talking to, he's not taking any shit. And what I really liked about this opening scene is I feel like they're ad-libbing when he takes the paper clips. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna track everything. This is what I'm going to do. He's got his sleeves rolled up. He's got a tie loosened, all that. And let's be honest, Robert Conrad's wearing all the tight stuff that you'd wear back in the 70s, the short shorts, the short things, his packages hanging out. This is an excellent episode when it comes to 70s fashion and just the styling nature of it. It's just that he can't let it happen. So what we do see is this really elegant looking, slim, tanned secretary getting flirted with him by him, and they're doing it kind of professionally. So it's like he's like, you know what, I don't give a shit what you're saying. I'm gonna go back on this chick. And he's basically like, hey, I want you to come to this party that I'm having. And honestly, I don't remember, but I think it was an X-rated film that they were showing. I'm dead serious.
Yep. No. They have
like a sex party kind of thing.
They have a new horror film that is
horror or horror,
and X-rated and uncut. That's what he said.
So I don't know. But he smooches on her, and they haven't sealed the deal, but you can tell that she's kind of hot for him. So this is typical. You're the power alpha male in your business franchise. You're worth $1 gazillion. He's basically robbing everybody. So in about a week he can leave and go live in the Mediterranean full time. Good on you.
2 months. 2 months, sir. Yeah,
Yeah,
2 months
I mean,
to go.
this is a man with a plan, and a man who has a plan and he actions his plan, we respect somehow, some way. But she's going along with it, and this is kind of cool. It's like, you're so damn cool, Robert Conrad. I don't care if your show was 50, 60 years ago. Damn, he's so good. I do want to point out that the necklace he's wearing, I think, is the Egyptian. I think you can pronounce it Ankh, A-N-K,
Yes.
H or something like that. I think that's a symbol of virility, because in the 70s there was a lot of numerology and types of things like that going on or whatever. So he invites her over to place, but of course it's all part of the setup. The only thing that he notices is after he leaves is he knows she records conversations. So he's doing the Epstein thing where he's getting dirt on people. He's a smart businessman. Robert Conrad, A+ so far. But he does the old splicey splice thing here, and that kind of leads into what's going to be happening here a little bit next. So great setup. I enjoyed it. He comes back at night, and then the shenanigans ensue. Sir, why don't you go ahead and take it from here for a little bit?
Yeah, no, he goes ahead, he splices, because, yes, he's pretty much taping every call, except the last call that he had. That's an important bit to include. But he goes ahead and he splices a piece of the tape, and from there, it's time for action. The secretary is going to be setting up his party. Just go in there about 8:15, make sure everybody's getting in there. And he goes ahead, goes back to the gym after it has closed down. The cleaner is gone. And inside is Gene Stafford just working away. Milo Janice pulls out a key. He opens it. He goes in. He steps inside and walks his way into the office. And Stafford isn't really happy to see him. But he keeps pretty much going with the conversation they were having earlier. I almost have you. I have all this. All the pieces are fitting together. And you know what? You are in deep, friend. And then I can't remember what it does, if he has like a cigarette. No, it's coffee. He's pouring coffee for
the
himself.
coffee is steaming when he's pouring it. You
Yes.
can clearly see that. That's a nice touch there.
And Janice says, all that coffee is going to kill you. And Stafford's like, no, I intend on living a nice long time. And that's what Robert Conrad says. No, you aren't. Takes out a rod and tries to choke him. The coffee pours onto his Janice's hand. Stafford's able to slip away, runs, but Janice is after him. They go into the main area of the gym. He grabs him. It's over. I forgot to mention that there is a little scene in between where Janice went home. He took out the light bulb within his telephone.
Those old phones, man, I love them so much. You'd have them hang on your wall, but then the heavy one at your desk like that. I believe that was the one that Donald Pleasance whacked his hippie brother with from the wine thing too, the Liquid Gold episode, if I recall correctly. I think it was green. I think we saw it in another thing, and I swear green phone's been used twice. I miss those phones so much. Yeah, because here's the thing about this fight, this exchange, this death. It's sufficiently brutal enough where it doesn't have to be bloody and gruesome. But the difficulty of overtaking a man that's physically bigger than you, but you're healthy and fit, and you're chasing him down. And when you're doing it in slacks, it's not the easiest thing, right? But it's interesting to me because the fitness craze kind of really started like in the 60s and 70s when you had this burgeoning like middle class going on to me. And so we always like to sit here in Florida, say things came from like New York and came down, or fitness stuff came from the West Coast because people came back from the war. They would stay active and fit. Martial arts was starting to become a craze. And Robert Conrad's a perfect guy in his role. So his shenanigans is, okay, I whacked you. I got coffee spilled on my right hand accidentally. I'm going to take my master key and I'm going to go through you. And what does he do? He just kind of like puts him in his workout clothes and he poses him. Kind of like we saw in Hannibal, right? I always thought of this episode when I thought of all the not effigies, but the way they would be put up in the Hannibal episodes and displayed and all that too. There's a name for it that escapes me off the top of my head. And Robert Conrad's face is just, you can tell that it was difficult and a struggle. And it's not like evil, like, oh my God, it's just whatever. But he takes the bent over row bar and he puts it on the guy's neck to make it look like he was pressing and it fell on his neck. Because I will tell you, in my gym that I go to, when you bench press, you don't put pins on the end that hold the weights there, because if you fail and it hits you in your neck, you're dead, which is what happens here. This is not a joke. This is how most people die in the gym lifting weights. You have to learn to kind of lean it to the side and rock it back and forth to do it, and you should use safety bars. Me seeing all this quote unquote high end equipment from way back in the day, oh, this is just incredible. So for someone my size that does the old school iron kind of thing or whatever like that, I loved it. But then there's the new school stuff that we're going to see a little bit later when it comes to his fitness routine when him and Columbo finally start hooking up here too. All I got to sit there and say, Gretchen Corbett looks absolutely stunning in her dress with her hair up when he comes home there and tells everybody, hey, I'm going to get the film going, blah, blah, blah. You couldn't believe me, da, da, da. She's pouring drinks. He's so smooth.
Yeah.
This is just great. It's just, he brings a different element, even though we've seen similar setups before in other Columbo episodes. What's your take on what's going on here?
Yeah, no, once he has it all, once he has that body set up, he goes back and he's like, oh, well, I drove all the way to whatever Motors that was his cover story. And they were closed. How about that? But he says, enough of that, time to start the movie. He steps into the study. He has the projector come down. He starts it. He closes the door and he calls himself. Of course, Gretchen, being the secretary she is, instantly picks up the phone and the tape plays and she hears Stafford's voice. Hey, it's Gene. Can I speak to Milo? Can I speak to him? And that's when Milo steps out and Gretchen says, oh yes, of course. It's Stafford. And he has this imaginary conversation with him. Oh, Gene, how are you doing? Still at the office. Gonna work out. Oh man, it's a little late for that. We're having a party. Why don't you come join us? Well, you have to be careful. Yeah, acting within acting. And all that, he goes ahead, hangs up the phone, makes it seem friendlier than it was. We cut to the next morning to the gym. Police have taken the area. Sorry, I got.
Well, the one thing I'll make a comment about here. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I got distracted by Columbo coming in. I need my coffee first thing.
Oh, what I was going to say here before Columbo steps up here is this. What I think about this scene here is it doesn't look like he's trying really hard. We've seen where people in the death part of Columbo, the killing, so we've seen accidental, we've seen intentional, we've seen over elaborate, we've seen just straightforward like here, and it was a struggle. But we have not seen too many episodes of Columbo where the death itself and the cover-up were both particularly difficult. Like one was a lot more elaborate than the other is what I feel like, just off the top of my head. We've had some doozies for sure, but this ranks right up there for me as far as like, okay, it was a bit of a difficult kill. He knew what he was going to do and how he was going to do it, but didn't go exactly the way he planned, but he thought on his feet very well. But then the elaborate cover-up and everything too with the phone and all that. And he didn't act like he was really taxed by it. It was just like, I just got to get this done. I'm the man. And he does it. And that's a different quality than we've seen in a lot of the killers in the Columbo episodes to me so far. And I kind of respect that because I think that some people, when they have a certain sort of charisma, Robert Conrad to me is one of those guys, you feel like they're not trying and they're not acting or they don't have a range. And while that may or may not be true, I would maintain that if Steve McQueen was on screen or Charles Bronson, you don't care if they can act Hamlet or not or whatever. You're going there to see them. That's kind of what it is. And Conrad is at that level of charisma to me as an actor, especially with, like you said, when he plays the tape and then comes out there and she's handing him a glass of orange juice, which I'll bitch about later when we start talking food, and it irritates me more. But yeah, Columbo, he doesn't have his coffee, and oh boy, they're really focusing on coffee here right now. So he's talking to this dude saying, oh, it could have been a heart attack, no, whatever, and all that. And they're talking about lifting this weight up. So this is kind of interesting for what they were doing here, because that was not a straight bar that you typically bench press with.
Well, it's so funny because, we talk about how Columbo finds his little clues. But he gets a call first thing in the morning. And who else could it be but Mrs. Columbo? But because of that, he has to go into the office and answer the phone.
Convenient, isn't it?
It is. It is. But it works. I mean, he goes ahead in there. What do you mean? All this family, the twins, they're coming over? Okay. Well, you want to make them spaghetti? Make spaghetti. What do you mean diet? And then he notices some Chinese takeout in the garbage, and he picks it up. He's like, I have an idea. Chinese. I'll pick it up on the way home tonight. You go ahead and just figure out what to order. All right, I'm hanging up. You can keep talking, but I'm hanging up. It's cute. He goes ahead. He hangs up. He notices the takeout. A lot of it. Why would a man be eating this much right before working out like that? And then he notices a spot on the floor. A stain. The coffee. And after that, he goes ahead out there. And he notices some heel marks on the ground. And that's when the custodian is like, can you please tell your officers to be more careful? You know, a guy works real hard to get marks out like that. And it's brown polish that he notices. And so he starts going around and asking everybody. I don't know what the black cop's name was, but he had a voice that was very easy to remember. No, all black here.
There are a bit more stage actors and secondhand types or whatever that seem to be on TV 2 generations ago. And in essence, for a man, that means a baritone. I mean, look, a man can be a tenor as well, and then people cross over into both. But some people just have that tenor voice, which is what you'd hear a lot in the 80s with pop music. You heard a lot more baritones and richness in R&B and stuff in the 70s and 80s. And it's not right or wrong. It's what you're born with, right? But I did notice that too. We've seen a lot of episodes of Columbo where they've had people that when we looked up what they were in, you're like, hey, this was not just a throwaway guy for a role that was only on there. This guy was like an actor with 50 credits to his name, you know, and been around. And there's 1 or 2 guys that just their voice alone, I said, man, I got to go look this guy up. This guy's, it's incredible. And it's distracting because it's that good. Yeah, I remember back in the old days here when we started having fluorescent lights in here, the lighting here that Columbo's on the floor with the janitor guy. The janitor guy, I don't know who he was either, but he had a distinction about him too. And I can't explain it because it wasn't bad acting. It just he popped off the screen. Even though
He was
he's like,
very
hey,
familiar.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I spent an hour last week and I'm like, who the hell are you, dude? And I didn't bother looking it up. But the point is that this guy's explaining that he has a difficulty because back in the day when men wore shoes a lot more, you would have only a couple dress shoes and you'd go get them polished and you'd go get them scuffed out. So what would happen is in your floors that were like linoleum and stuff like that in grocery stores and public places, what would happen is they would scuff very easily, especially with dress shoes. And since most people wore them, what you would have is you'd have to figure out how to clean them. Well, the way we would do back in the days, we'd have like a piece of wood and like a stick, and we would have like a torn up tennis ball at the end of it that you could just rub and it would take it out. You wouldn't have to bend over and scrape it and scrap it. And so what they're doing is they're showing Columbo getting down, asking the guy through it. They're educating you as the viewer as to why this is thing. This is no minor detail. And this, of course, is where Gene met his end and he got dragged off. So those kind of details, when they plan it, they're showing it to you, they're recognizing what's going on. But he had already seen a spilled coffee. He wants his coffee, Columbo does, and he goes through the typical overdoing it just to make sure he understands everything going on. So well noticed on your part there too, because you know they do ask everybody, hey, what color shoes? Anybody wearing brown? And they're all black was the typical color you wear. Almost nobody wore brown unless you're European or like on a date or something like that, especially in the 70s. That's just how it was. A lot of blue suits, grays and off grays and blues. That was pretty much it. And a few plaid type patterns because it's the 70s. That's really the whole thing to it or whatever. But yeah, that guy did seem familiar. Don't know who he was, but you know what? He probably was somebody.
Probably. From there, it's time for him to go ahead and make his rounds. He first goes to Milo Janice's house, knocks on the door, and we have I don't know why it says Then we have Gretchen there, Jessica Conroy, Mr. Janice's secretary. They're answering. She's wearing a bikini. Says that Mr. Janice is running along the beach, but he should be back any moment now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going ahead. He's having a short filling conversation. I hear. How old is Mr. Janice? I hear that he's someone close
Fishing
to
socially. He's not just conversating with her. He's social engineering. He's trying to find out stuff. That was my take.
Yeah, no, that is what he's doing. That's what Columbo's always doing. And he's like apparently 53, and looks great for his age. And that's when he finally comes in, and he has to let them know the unfortunate news that Mr. Stafford died last night. You can tell that Jessica Conroy is getting a little upset by this. Columbo keeps saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry." But it right now just seems a terrible accident. Columbo says, "Well, maybe. We don't know anything too much yet. We know his neck was crushed, but we don't know if he had a heart attack before." And then he notices as he shakes Mr. Janice's hand, the mark. And he says, "Oh, yeah, well, I ran it under the hot water while shaving this morning." Well, last time I got a mark like that, it was from coffee. Yeah. And then he slips away to visit the wife.
Yeah. Yowzer. This is a secretary who's wearing, that's a bikini, sir. That is what a bikini is.
That's what I said.
What women used to look like in the 70s. I'm just telling you, that's why we have the photo there, too. That's your average girl next door back in the 70s. That hair and everything else. I'm telling you, it's just amazing. We don't see that anymore. She just got plowed by this 53-year-old dude or whatever, like that fitness expert. I'm sure she looked a little high to me and off or drunk or hungover, and that's fine. But it wasn't the emphasis of the show like it was in a few other episodes where a lover might have been drawn in accidentally or used, like we have seen. This is just this man is at the peak of his powers, professionally, personally, whatever you want to call it, and it's on display without really rubbing it in your face. It's just, yeah, this is how a rich, good-looking guy who works out in a single deals with it. He doesn't ask her if she wants to come over. He's like, "Yeah, come on over. We're gonna have a party." She knows what that means. That's the beer and pizza code for let's have a little relations when everybody's gone. So I'm glad she doesn't turn out, spoiler alert here, not really a big part of anything here too. Honestly, she's just sort of there as eye candy. Now, some people might not like it because we've had some strong women in Columbo episodes, but I appreciate and respect the fact that Columbo episodes will show things how they really are here. This is kind of how people were. People might listen and go, "Oh, this is just, showing her off." Well, yeah, do it. Deal with it. What I thought was actually pretty good too, though, that surprised me was after he leaves, when he goes to see the dead dude's ex-wife or whatever like that, there was something about her that the forlorn, lost, grieving type ex or whatever like that, she played, I think, the part really well because she's actually in a couple parts in this episode. But my feeling, Pixel, was that she wasn't somebody portrayed to take pity on. Like most of the time you're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss," the standard bullshit reply and all that, which, it's the right thing to say, but it's overused. It's not thoughtful, right? And so I really appreciate the fact that she wasn't, whining like, "Oh, if this guy only da da da." She was just kind of matter of fact about it and kind of like, wow, she handled it pretty well without going and tipping it to the other end of like, "That no good bastard had it coming to him," and I had it. I was like, this is a delicate kind of situation for her to be in, and it might be me putting that on her, but I felt that this was different than some of the other interactions we've seen when it comes to a woman that could be in a simple throwaway role.
No, I think you're right because she's very, when it comes to their relationship,
she seems like a good woman.
They fell out of love. That's what it was. She says they had a kid, and the kid turned 18, left, and it was just them alone in the house. And both of them found out they didn't have much to talk about. And they had been separated.
Yeah.
They weren't divorced. They were separated.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say this, because I imagine you're going to want to talk about that. We get an extended scene come up here, and we're almost actually halfway through the episode. Believe it or not, it's not going fast, but it's pacing well. I call this the beach scene. So let's talk about the beach. The beach was a 2000 movie release date with Leo DiCaprio in it, with the script by Alex Garland. And they go to this beach, and he makes love to this dude's girl in the waters. And it's about backpacking and trying to, like, ignore the universe and just try to find your happy place. And that's kind of what we had way before all this, because I'm kind of, popping myself here a little bit, because when you have a Robert Conrad, you have a fit guy, this is what you do. You film him live over there, whether that's Long Beach or wherever they're at, and he's swimming and they're walking, and it's a long extended take. There's not a lot of cuts or whatever. This is beautiful television to see, just people walking by the piers and all that. LA and its glory or infamy, whatever you want to call it, in the early to mid 70s here too, while they're talking about it. This is probably, I think, start to finish, the longest individual scene. And sometimes a movie or a TV show just with a couple really great scenes and no bad ones is all you need, and some stuff to tie it together. This is Columbo in a nutshell. If I had to condense this episode down to 10 minutes, it would be this whole beach scene all the way until Columbo leaves, because it tells you everything you need to know about the episode and who the killer is. Pretty weak ass push-ups, though, I got to give you in the sand, bro. And don't start talking that carrot juice, because that simple sugar and more is not the best thing for you. You need a high protein diet, but ketogenic stuff would not become popular until the 80s, 90s, sir. But please go ahead. I'm just ranting.
Yeah, no, they're on the beach, and Janice is saying, "Oh yeah, I can go ahead and answer your questions here. Why don't you go ahead and join me?" And they're running, and Columbo is not made for running. They get to his house, and Columbo's like, "I need a moment," and he's like, "Okay, well, while you need a moment, I'm gonna keep going." He takes a dip in the pool, cools off, and he's hitting what's it called? He got a little punching bag that he's going ahead and hitting. Yes.
Well, and he's a boxer, and you see him. Those shorts aren't short shorts. Those were typical shorts. Those are not short shorts. Everyone's like, "Oh, those shorts are too short." No, that's how shorts were. They only became long because the thug culture got big in the late 80s, 90s, and everything got baggy. So that was typical. That was pretty standard. Yeah. Columbo, actually, though, Peter Falk was a pretty athletic dude. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he was an athlete too, big time golfer and stuff. So it's kind of funny, because if you know him, you look at him, he's having to act like he can't jog or run or whatever. And remember, he has to sit down and catch his breath because he has a lot of sand in his shoe.
Yes, he does. He takes it off, beats it out. And then he has a couple questions about, like, well, why would you need to eat that large Chinese takeout that night? And Janice is like, well, it's just the kind of guy he was. He wanted to do everything right now. Forget about rules, forget about waiting, all that. And, he also asks about the floor, that there was a mark that they noticed, and he kind of just shakes off the idea. When he spoke to him on the phone, he was changing into his gym clothes. Must have just done something there. They go inside the house, and he asks the detective, "Detective, have you had breakfast yet?" And he's like, no, I haven't. Here you are. And he hands him a few pills and some carrot juice. Hey, something's wrong with this orange juice. That's carrot juice.
There was a guy, a scientist back in the day, named Linus Pauling. I used to joke and call him the vitamin C guy, because in my the beginnings of my scientific career, I was like, "What's the deal with this dude and vitamin C and all that?" And his thing was something called megadosing. That if you're eating a natural diet, you got what you needed. But in the world where you had mass production and this is not a political thing, it was just the idea of what was going on in the 70s about being naturally and healthy, is that if you're using something like DDT to kill weeds and this and that, or like Roundup's like an equivalent type thing, that you would get bad stuff in you, would affect your biochemistry. So you would need supplementation to let go of that. If you had something like vitamin C, well, you can't just take some vitamin C, because you have to have a certain effective dosage in it for it to matter. And how much do you take of that? So he would say, no, you need a mega dose on it. right now the current thing people talk about in terms of like cancer is high levels of testosterone as the therapy for it. Believe it or not, it's against everything the modern medicine says, but that's the big thing. And also something called melatonin, which relaxes you, that the brain produces. Some people think it's in short supply due to the blue light from screens and stuff. So this sounds kind of like an idiotic idea that he's just dumping a bunch of pills and it's just a cheap ass kind of bulk markup. But some people thought that was snake oil. But this is a cutting edge fitness guy, and frankly, who doesn't want to look like Robert Conrad? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, but Columbo's, a ham and egger kind of guy, which that's a great breakfast too. I'd rather have Columbo's breakfast than Milo Genesis, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, when we have this, we do get a lot of Columbo reading him. And he like takes one of the pills and drinks some of the juice, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll save these for lunch. Sets them aside. And that's when he gets a call and he notices the light is out on Janice's phone. And then his next move is to track down actually a name that he got from Stafford's estranged wife. Mm-hmm. Leads him to Tricon Industries, where we have this.
She's kind of hot.
She is. She's a very pretty receptionist. And she says, "Here, fill out this form." No, ma'am. I'm a cop. Oh, security jobs are just down the hall. No. I'm not here for a job. I'm here on official business. I'm looking for what's his name? Something Lewis. Lewis
something.
Laney Lewis. Because I remember it had to be a girlish name, because I thought about during that scene where Columbo mentions the name to the ex-wife that the wife might think, Laney, was he with some hot young thing? No, but that's not what happened. See, these things just pop up in my mind. But we get this is supposed to be the funny scene, because you have Columbo rather impatient as the computer is getting all the information about Mr. Lewis, Lacey Lewis. And eventually it's done. He's kind of nagging the receptionist. At first, I was like, well, the receptionist should just explain it. It'll just take a few moments, and by the time this is done, we'll get it right out to you. But she's acting rather annoyed. But by the fifth time, I was almost on her side about it.
Yeah, and this reminded me of the horrible Basset Hound thing that we still probably haven't seen, and also the fact that they put the Danger Will Robinson, the one robot in the one episode or whatever it is, and that I just completely find forgettable. But at the time, and I'm not defending this because I didn't care for it. It was cutting edge, or they wanted to pop themselves or something because they're using it as like promotion because of another show they had on their network at the time that may or may not be true. But I'm saying this is obviously a very dated thing. But at the time, that big mainframe behind them, that's how you did computers and stuff. That's how some of the first computer games, which are only a year or two away from being written, like an MIT and all that, interactive fiction on these 5 1/4 inch floppies. That's the only time you had access for it. So they were showing how they were a cutting edge company and all that too. And I just don't know what the incentive was to put the scene in here. I mean, it's detective work, I guess, and sometimes they have them be cute with how would you call it, the public government servants of the time, if you will. Like he hasn't been at a DMV yet, but that won't be fun for anybody. But I didn't mind it. But I think one of the reasons why they did this is so they could ad-lib and make it a bit lighthearted, is because we get an interesting scene and then we get a really fucking dark one here too. The interesting one is the separated wife and him meet to talk business, and she's basically at the restaurant with them. And he's basically saying, yeah, you don't really want to whatever, I'll make you rich or whatever. And she's like, no, I think I want to stay with the company now that he's dead. I'm going to get me a good accountant, go through everything and all that too. So she's basically saying, fuck you. I know you're swindling and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you killed my husband or whatever like that. So she's not really in his face. She's actually very kind of cool the way she takes it or whatever. And this is the most assholey badass thing the Robert Conrad could do. Before he goes from an A+ to God tier in this episode, he's sitting on her and he's all dressed up looking handsome, and she's dressed up pretty nice too. And he's basically almost threatened. So this is where the veneer starts to slip. And he's like, "You don't want to do that. You don't know anything about business and and all that too. Besides, I can make you a very wealthy woman and all that." And then basically, he just basically says, "Okay, got it." She just is kind of like, "Yeah, whatever." And so then he's kind of feels like he's done. So he's basically say, "All right, so why don't you come on back to my place?" I mean, he's such a pussy hound.
Yeah, no, he'll go ahead and try to smooch her over.
He gets the old drink in the face.
Why not? I'm also glad that we had a scene. Columbo, he was investigating, and one of his business partners he was speaking to, and this business partner is basically giving Columbo nothing, saying, "Oh, well, I've given you all this information. Yeah, I was at the house, and that's where he was, and that's all I have to say about it."
I picked this though because of the car. And look at the guy's jacket. It's a nice jacket. Look at his friggin' pants, bro.
Oh God!
I'm telling you, plaid was huge.
Oh God!
But look at that friggin' car, because sometimes they get some sweet rides in here, and you see old great cars in old TV shows. Nobody makes cars anymore. I don't care what anybody says their performance. They all suck. They look like little plastic boxes. They're all dog shit. I don't care what it is, right? But I don't remember if that's a Ferrari or a Vet or whatever like that. I can't tell if that's a T-top. But that's a badass ride. Everybody had a badass ride in the 70s. God, the cars are so good. Look at dude in the background. He's got a jacket on and he's got jeans. That is a fashion no-no. But that kind of started the relaxed kind of business attire over in California, especially in the Valley, and started working its way across. Then that's when your dress down Fridays kind of thing started to become popular, maybe 10 years later. So it kind of struck me because this guy was like, "Fuck you, Columbo." And I kind of liked it. It was a little different, I think, but it's just there to serve a purpose. That's all.
We also have Columbo going by Janus headquarters, and he's not there, but the secretary is. And he goes ahead, he has a conversation about that night and asks about receiving the call, and what exactly did he say? And she goes ahead and says, "Well, he was just saying, hi, what's her name? Hi, Jessica. Can I please speak to Mr. Janus?" And Columbo asks, "Well, I have to ask, are you often at his house?" "No, this was the first time." "So when he called and heard your voice, he didn't think it odd and didn't question it?" And that makes her start to think about it. That's when we get the scene of her, schmoozing the wife and going ahead telling, "Hey, don't you dare. Don't you dare do jack shit."
Ruth is pretty good here. She could be a lesser forgettable character, but for some reason she just seems to work for me.
After this, he goes to the gym the next day, and who is working on a what's the machine called? Columbo, he's strapped in, and he's running along.
It's the older version of the elliptical.
Yes, that's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. He's running, and Janice goes by. "I tell you, I've changed I've cut the cigarettes, I've cut the chili, and I feel like a new man. And you know what? It's attitude." He's like, "Yeah, that's nice, Columbo. That's enough. I'm busy. I'm a very busy man." And he goes into the office. And what does Columbo do? But goes into the office after him. And he just has a few more questions about the shoes. There had to be something of a struggle outside, because the way that it was, he had to stop. And at this point, he's aware that Columbo, more than suspects him, is just trying to grill all the information down. And the last thing that Columbo adds is that that Mrs. Stafford was at the station in the morning, not to talk to him, to talk to another department, Bunko, because she's not an experienced businesswoman, but she wanted to bring some concerns up to them about the way that he's doing it. And then he reveals that he spoke to a Mr. Lacey about it, the operations. And technically you're within the law. But that's when there's not tragedy striking. It's upsetting.
With this picture here, it's a lot tougher selling apples on a street corner. It sounds kind of snide, but back in the day, especially if you grew up in the Depression and, most of the time at the turn of the century, over 100 years ago, you were working on a farm or whatever, and it was, not necessarily as easy as it could be today, no matter what people might say. But the point is if you had to go out and sell and hustle, some people can make a living doing that. And the whole wisdom here of being older as a kid, this is like a throwaway line, or apples is stupid. Who sells apples on the street corner? That's dumb. But in a street corner, if you knew people and knew how to read them, you could sell. And that's a people skill that never goes away. And it reminds us that this guy's not an entitled prick that's just inherited all this money. He created everything on his own, so he feels entitled to it, and he does. And just this one bastard got in his way of his mega ultra plan or whatever. And this is just the brilliant arrogance that this guy is able to convey without. It's hard for me to hate him. I know he's a bad guy, but he's so good at what he does. And that's not even a slick, like, cool kind of thing. It's just, has it really, other than the murder, I was gonna say, has it really broken the law? But I mean, other than the one guy, it's like he probably could have cashed out that day and left and not have ever gotten caught. It's just that
Probably what he
thought
should have
this was
done.
a great line, because he's a guy that, look, if you're in her position, he seems to be the kind of guy that, he's a bad guy. He's like, look, here's how it's going to work. Either I'm going to shoot you down and kill you, or I'm going to give you $10,000 and you get the fuck out of here and never open your mouth again. And you almost believe him. I mean, he's that good. That's why I put this line in here too, because I just thought it was a nice little throwback, a callback, if you will, to people that grew up in tough times, World War II, having to sell anything to make a living, whether it was food, whether it was newspapers. Anybody that's ever done any sort of selling. Selling is not the same thing. It's not taking a business person's script that they wrote and you just say it and it works. And all the social media stuff that I heard today that doesn't work. It's made it even harder to separate people from their money. And it's a reminder of just how far this guy has come in franchising, because franchising as a concept, honestly, again, almost 2 generations ago, this wasn't how a lot of things were, but it's how things were becoming, because we had a somewhat affluent middle class at the time. So I just thought this was kind of interesting. Because look, if I told you to say this line, hey, it's a lot tougher selling apples on a street corner, could you say it and make it, and really what you're saying is like, I'm the fucking man, this is my whole life, don't you fuck with me, and really convey that? That's not easy to do. That's how good Robert Conrad is. End of rant.
Yeah. No. And you know what? That takes us towards the end here. There's a call. He goes down to the hospital. Mrs. Stafford seems that she was drinking too much and nearly overdosed on pills. They got her in, but clearly she's upset. Columbo talks to her, and she says, I talked to him, and I knew he was cheating Jean, and I guess I had too much to drink. And after that, Columbo, he goes out there, and who's in the waiting room but Robert Conrad. And he sits down. She asks Columbo, hey, how is she? And Columbo says, what do you care? You know what? She nearly died because she thinks that you killed her husband. And you know what? So do I. And like oh God, when he says it, when Columbo gets passionate, it's hard to not love it. Oh. And at that point, he is saying your alibi doesn't check out. You said that you went to go to whatever Motors, but they've been open till 9 o'clock for the past year. And you go ahead, and he's saying, well, you know what I meant to say, because it's a verbal statement. And if you claim otherwise, it's not going to really matter. What I meant to say was I was looking for Mr. Edward there, and Mr. Edward's car wasn't there, so I turned right around. You can't prove otherwise. You can't prove it, Columbo. And at that point, he leaves the office, and Columbo's leaving as well when he notices a mother tying her son's shoe. Yeah.
That's your flash of insight there too, because he went through the shoe tying thing with the sand in it, and we also dealt with the shoe earlier on with the polish. So this is all kind of connects here too. But yeah, as soon as Columbo says, how's she doing? What do you care? Well, because was it Ruth, right? So they said basically she OD'd. I'm like, did he fucking kill her off screen? What's going on here? She didn't seem suicidal to me or whatever. So when he goes in there to see her and all that, she's like, yeah, he was just laughing at me, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is a great little description to me. Like, if you've ever been blasted out of your mind on alcohol, she goes, I guess I drank too much and his head was just kept spinning around me laughing. And I'm like, oh, that described it perfectly. That's such a well-written line. It's straight to the point and it makes sense. And Conrad's able to keep his cool here too, but you're right. We don't see Columbo do this too much. And if you do this too much and go back to that, it's not going to work all that much. But it's given me a bit of faith in the Columbo character, because the best scene to me is not him yelling at him. It's when I think he's opening a magazine or like that, and he's starting to light up his cigar or whatever like that. And he's looking at him. He's like, "You're a devious man." He's just looking at him like you're fucking disgusting. And it's just these are two alpha bulls locking horns, and neither one of them are moving. Nobody's won. I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, this gets into like Japanese philosophy on the two samurai approaching the same bridge and staying there until they both die, because they to turn around is to lose face kind of thing or whatever. It's like, all right, it's on. And this is what made me think he was onto him really early. And man, it's really good. So after he sees her, in the room, I think we've seen this hospital too before, and maybe this Janice's office. I'm not really sure. I'm like, okay, whatever. But we're basically down, and I'll sit there and say that Robert Conrad at least had enough time to go home and like take his jacket off, put on another shirt, or maybe this is the undershirt. I don't know, because he's got a nice little spotted pattern on his shirt. While he's just stylish in everything he does. And
I noticed that too. It's
a
very nice shirt. I noticed that too. It's a very nice shirt. I like it.
Yeah, but even Columbo's looks kind of drab by comparison, but the color tones actually match his kind of skin and all that stuff too. There's even though it looks ragged when you look at it, it's really not. But the way Conrad's shirt fits him and all that, and he fills it out. A lot more shirts. When shirts were made back in the day, they had more what called a drop between your shoulders and your waist. And they also had a bunch of different versions of one between your neck and all that. Because now, basically, since everything's made not by hand for the most part and all that, they've reduced and eliminated sizes like they've done with food over the past year since COVID. And so things don't fit. So you had what was called more of a European look in the 70s, except for big lapels and all that, but we're clothes that's very form-fitting. But if you also notice, like we said, you don't see a lot of fat people walk around in the background either, too. So even Columbo might look like he's got a little bit of a gut, but he's just walking bent over, because that's like a tick of the character or whatever, the way he wanted to present him. He's still a fairly young, fit guy here, too, but it's funny because as dark as this got with her maybe killing herself and Columbo getting pissed, this is a very short, to the point ending. Why don't you handle that, sir?
Yeah, we get to the end. We have Milo, Janice, Robert Conrad getting back to the office, and suddenly there is the phone is ringing. He picks it up and he hears the voice of Mr. Stafford going ahead and speaking. Well, Gene, or no, not Gene. Milo, I want to talk to you about these Green Eagle prices that you have. And he's like, he hangs it up and he goes quickly outside of the office. And who's there but Columbo? And he says, Columbo, what the hell are you doing? And Columbo is just saying that he's proving how a dead man can appear alive. He says that he noticed he's able to go through these. He's noticed the splice mark in a recent tape, and he took that one from a few months prior. And Janice asks, "Hey, what gives you the right?" "This, sir," and he pulls out a warrant. "This warrant gives me the right." I loved that.
That's a big F you, yeah.
It was so good. But he goes through and he's like, "You still don't have proof." And he's, what was it? Oh, it didn't take me till July, because there was a line earlier that perfectly syncs up to that. But I got the proof. And he starts he puts his shoe on the desk and shows how he ties his shoe, because he's right-handed. And this is how most right-handed people tie their shoes. And then he pulls out an old sneaker and ties it, and notices how the loop that would normally be on the other side is not. And then shows a picture of the shoes that Mr. Stafford was wearing when they found his body. And the loop matches perfectly compared to the shoe that was in his locker, still tied. And even then, you have Jenna saying, what does that prove? That just proves somebody else was there. No, sir, it had to be you. Because at 9 o'clock with your statement, you said that he had already changed into his gym clothes. Nobody else had seen him before that. So how did you know that he was dressed in his gym clothes? It could only be you. And that's where it ends. I'm not sure how that's going to hold up in court, but yeah, that's the thing that I thought about with this episode. But I really don't care because the episode was great. I really think that this might be one of the weakest arguments. Talking about how he ties his shoe. Maybe his right hand was hurting that day. I don't know. But it's so good. It's so compelling. I loved it. 2 thumbs up. I want a nice big cup of coffee after this episode.
You know, here's the thing. The whole technology scene we didn't need to have. So I thought it was there to be funny. I don't know if that was meant to contrast against the dark thing at the end. I mean, and the ending here, I get why they explained it all too, but I kept saying, bro, the more you're talking, more I'm going. If I'm Robert Conrad, I'm going, fuck you, Columbo, I'm out of here. You know, prove it. You know, and we've said that on a couple episodes too. You know, contact lens comes to mind. But overall, and it's lost because, like I always, you know, mention how you're the young 20-something kid. And, you know, I'm a guy from the teenager in the 80s and stuff. So we look at it differently. And it's the first watch for us both. So it's pretty interesting. And I know I'm waxing about old man stuff too. But one of the things I can't stress enough is that when I talked about Robert Conrad earlier about how good looking he is, but he was a man's man. He was somebody you could look up and go, he's a guy you'd want to emulate and be like. He's a tough guy. There's a show in the 70s that got popular that had Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back, Kotter, who's a legit athlete kind of, and also poker commentary guy and player. Seriously, he's the real deal. And it was called Battle of the Network Stars. And so the idea was that the 3 main networks at the time, ABC, NBC, and CBS, they would take all their actors and put them like in a mini kind of like Olympic thing or whatever like that, like a running thing or a swimming thing, you know. And so, of course, it was just simple, cheap PR for them. But the ongoing thing that I even still remember to this day was how he kind of lost it to Gabe Kaplan, not taking him seriously as an athlete. And, of course, Conrad was older at the time. He's pushing 50 or whatever and all that. But it was a big deal kind of at the time, which nobody would even think about today because we don't have that. We don't have, oh, here's an actor that's been on CBS forever and Robert Conrad with Wild Wild West and then Blah Blah Black Sheep and, you know, or whatever, all these other shows, right? So normally at the time, you pretty much worked for 1 or 2 studios and that was it. You might get loaned out. So things were changing in television. And Conrad, the Wild Wild West, it's up there with Kung Fu and a bunch of other great shows. 70s was probably the pinnacle for the highest quality of writing in television and movies. I'm saying that generally specific, overall in the aggregate for you snobs out there. Argue with me because stuff might have been funner in the 80s and things I think we all agree watered down in the 90s and disappeared, and that's why we're here on the Xtreme Movie Show to kind of talk these out from a different perspective and see what we like and don't like. If this episode is a little shorter, Pixel, I think the grade could go up even more. If you're somebody like you that never watched Wild West or know who Robert Conrad is, maybe he's just another guy that, okay, maybe he's good looking, you can appreciate that on his own and the role and all that. But the fact that it's Robert fucking Conrad from the Wild Wild West as the bad guy elevates it so much for me because it's so good. And that's what's lost on some people today. It's like, you know, I always thought of Columbo as an idiot. Now that I'm watching Peter Falk, I'm like, oh, he's not. You know, the people who made fun of the character made me not want to see the show. So I'm so glad we're going through it too. And I'm looking forward to next week when we continue season 4 and do episode 2 then Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, ladies and gentlemen. Anything else there, Pixel?
I'm very excited to see Dick Van Dyke.
I am not.
You're not?
Because it's Dick Van Dyke. But I'm going to give it the honest college try because I've never seen the episode like any of the others except for maybe William Shatner one's probably the only one I can recall. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening here on the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Good night now.
Good night. Hey, one more thing. Never mind.